we have the pastor of the Lincoln Memorial United Methodist Church and the convener of this conference, Pastor George F. Nicholas. If he would, come on up. You can also find bios in your booklet of every committee member. So we don't want to spend a lot of time doing that. We want to get right into the root of the work. So without further ado, please give a round of applause for Pastor George Nicholas.
It's so good to see all of you here this morning, and your presence here this morning has already made this conference a success. What we're going to do today is we're going to have some information that's given to you. We're going to have some examples from around the country. We brought scholars here who have done the work that we're embarking on doing here in Buffalo. But the most important thing that we do today is we're building a movement. We're building a movement here that includes you and your gifts and your talents and your skills to bring health equity into this region. And we're going to give you the tools today to enable us and to empower us to eliminate race-based health disparities. Be very clear. It is my goal, my personal goal, and the goal of our task force, not just to lower some numbers, but it is our ultimate goal here and over time. And it may take a generation, but we do not believe that your race should be not only an underlying, but in this case, and we're going to talk about almost a determining factor on the quality of health in your living days and the longevity of your life. You know, we as preachers, we use a lot of hyperbole, and we exaggerate a lot in our oratory presentations. But today, I'm just going to deal with the facts. I don't have to amplify anything because the facts, the numbers, speak for themselves. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk for about 10 minutes, and then I'm going to bring up two people who are much smarter than I. So the first thing you learn today is when you have to give a presentation, bring some people up that are smarter than you to help you make your presentation. So Dr. Willie Underwood and Dr. Kenyatta Davis will come and give you some really good information on this topic. How are you feeling today? This is a standard salutation when you greet someone. Many of you encountered people today who you have not seen in a while and inquired, how are you? Didn't you see somebody you haven't seen in a while and say, hey, how you feeling? How are you doing? A quick triage into the condition of someone you encounter. Often the answer is the perfunctory fine. You ever tell somebody, oh, I'm fine, when you're really not? Well, for those who live in the city of Buffalo, for those who are African American who live in certain zip codes in the city of Buffalo, men, women, and children, the honest answer would be dramatically different from a white person who lived in other parts of the region. An African American would respond with a litany of challenges that would describe their daily existence. They might start with a brief medical history. They might talk about their high blood pressure and how their sugar is up and how they're struggling with respiratory illnesses and how they have infections and afflictions. They might share about their economic challenges. They might talk about being unemployed or underemployed. They might talk about their housing challenges. And if they have children or grandchildren in public schools, they might share the anxiety of sending their child to a failing school. I couldn't imagine doing that. The feeling that I would have within my spirit to dress my child to send them to a school that's on a list somewhere that says that it's underperforming. they themselves or someone else in their family might be caught up in the criminal justice system that would have uncertain outcomes. You know, you don't have to be guilty to go to jail in our community. You know that. And so when you ask someone who lives in the inner city of the city of Buffalo, or the inner city of the city of Lackawanna, or the inner city of the city of Niagara Falls, or the inner city of Nashville, or the inner city of Baltimore, they might say, you ask them, how are you? They might tell you, I'm sick and tired of being tired and sick. And this is the reality that far too many people in the African American community here in this great city deal with. You know, following the defeat of the Nazis and the establishment of the United Nations in 1945, world leaders declared that one measure of progress of humanity was the health of all humans. So on April 7th, in 1948, the World Health Organization was formed. And its mission and its vision and its purpose was clear. The right to the highest attainable standards of health implies a clear set of legal obligations on states to ensure appropriate conditions for the enjoyment of health for all people without discrimination. The right to health is one of a set of internationally agreed human rights standards, and it is inseparable or indivisible from these other rights. This means achieving the right to health is both central to and dependent upon the realization of other human rights to food, housing, work, education, information, and participation. The right to health, as with other rights, includes both freedoms and entitlements. Freedoms include the right to control one's health and body, for example, sexual and reproductive rights, and to be free from interference, for example, from torture or non-consensual medical treatment and experimentation. Entitlements include the right to a system of health protection that gives everyone, someone say everyone, an equal opportunity to enjoy the highest attainable level of health. So when we give the honest answer to how African Americans are feeling 60 years later after the establishment of the World Health Organization, a people who have survived enslavement, the Black Codes, Jim Crow, redlining, now has a community health profile that reveals an immoral truth. Infant mortality among blacks is almost 3 times the rates of whites. That's a pro-life issue. Asthma, hospitalizations for black children is more than 4 times that rate of whites. The percent of premature deaths in people younger than 75 was nearly double for blacks than whites. Black women are less likely to get breast cancer than white women, but are more likely to die from it. And a black woman with a health insurance has the same health outcomes as those of other communities without it. And the main factors around this, Dr. Taylor, is region, location, and race. African Americans residing in the inner city of Buffalo have exponentially higher rates of serious and chronic diseases, creating a premature mortality rate, which is an alarming 300% higher than whites in other parts of the region. So the root cause of this human rights violation, and yes, I said that, the condition of Black Buffalo, the health of Black Buffalo is a violation of human rights, and are not rooted in individual behavior of people who have endured enslavement in this hemisphere from 1509 to the legal but not economic emancipation in 1865. But it is rooted in the social determinants of health. Say that with me. Social determinants of health. That's why we're here. Now, the social determinants of health are the complex, integrated, and overlapping social structures and economic systems that are responsible for most health inequities. These These social structures and economic systems include the social environment, the physical environment, the health services, and structural and societal factors. Social determinants of health are shaped by the distribution of money, power, and resources throughout local communities, nations, and the world. When these factors are infected with structural, historical, and institutional and continual racism, then the only expected outcomes would be the dramatic race-based health disparities. At one level, these health disparities are alarming. But if you look at it from a scientific perspective and understand the social dynamics of what goes on in our community, these disparities would be expected. And that's our reality. So if we were to bring a charge to the United Nations, to the World Health Organization, said, folks better deal with me here, because it's not a long trip to go to New York City to the UN. And those of us who remember Malcolm's tragedy, remember? You know, and so this is a crisis that is not just a crisis that can be addressed by health fairs, balloons, and coffee cups. But this is a structural problem that is causing the death of people who live in African American communities and people who look like me and look like many of you. But it's not just our issue to solve.